Hello and welcome to a Taylor's Tales podcast. This is Chris's Corner. I'm your host Chris Taylor and welcome back to a brand new episode. This week I'm going to be talking about, yes, that's right, I am in the London 2024 Marathon and I cannot believe it. It's exciting news for me. I've been trying to get into the London Marathon for years, and if I'm totally honest with you, I've only ever entered via the ballot. I've talked about this before. Running for me is a passion. So I've always felt kind of half-hearted in trying to represent a charity, unless it really meant something to me. And it was only one or two charities that I was going to go for because they actually had some meaning behind it. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that. So for those who aren't interested in this, are just here for the running statistics, skip ahead 5 minutes or so, or how long. If you are interested in the charities, please stick around. For me personally, I'm representing Asthma and Lung UK. For those who don't know, I'm an asthmatic. I am somebody who's really, when I was younger, really struggled with asthma. I really had fitness issues. I struggled to keep fit when I was younger. I used to hyperventilate a lot. Every time I used to be able to, whenever I pushed myself, when it came down to, for instance, like cross country or football, I would really put myself into a dangerous state, I would say, of hyperventilation and just overreacting towards lung issues. And the doctors used to say, there's not a lot you can do. Here's 2 inhalers, brown one, blue one. At one point, I was taking medicine for it as well. And I got to like 18 or 19 years old. And it got to me. And I thought to myself, the one thing that has made me struggle was running. The one thing that scared me was running, because that was what put me into the hyperventilation, that put me into the asthma danger zone, basically.
Don't they know you're in the danger zone? Danger zone?
The zone will be one of danger?
Danger zone. And it's one of those things that you have to get over. And I thought to myself, well, I'm going to do the one thing that's going to challenge that, and that is start running. Now, granted, it sounds very British to, Russell Howard made this joke where he's scared of a dog, let's get him a dog. It's very British, isn't it? He's struggling with running, let's get him to start running. It is what it is. But I had a few inspirational people around me. I had my mum, who already had been running for years, along with my aunt, and I'd also seen Casey Neistat starting within YouTube, and I realised that I was not even trying. I was not doing any sort of exercise apart from playing five-a-side football every now and then, and my fitness was bad. It was bad. I could barely do any push-ups, I could barely do any sit-ups, and I wasn't in great shape. And it took me for the past 8 years of running to get where I am today, in terms of being able to run a half marathon without even thinking about it, being able to run a marathon in 3 hours and 27 minutes, being able to run a half marathon below 1 hour 40. I've built this up, and over time, by just slowly increasing the amount of miles that I put on my body, and at the same time incorporating weightlifting back in 2018, was the thing that counteracted it and allowed me to run more and not get as injured as much. Not get as injured as much. And I think that's something that's not talked about a lot within the running community, is that there needs to be some sort of muscle building to be able to help with your running and stop injury, and to make sure that you have the other side of the coin. So you've got your muscle building and you've got your cardio. So your cardio versus something that isn't extremely cardio based, which is weightlifting. And this isn't very scientific, I know, but this is just the experience that I've had over the years. And asthma for me, once I'd got to the point where I'd attempted to run a marathon for the first time back in 2018, 2019, when it was 35 degrees out. So
who gives a fuck?
And that's Celsius, by the way, for the Americans. And 35 degrees Celsius out, and I decided to try and run around this 4 mile track multiple times until I hit 26 miles. Sadly, I only got 18 in. And I realised that my asthma was still there, because by the time I hit 18, my lungs were tight and I was seriously struggling to still breathe, because it really got to me. And that's when I discovered Goggins. And that's when I discovered that I was leaving a lot on the table, and that I allowed asthma to get to me. And I think for me personally, if I allowed it to continue to haunt me and allow me to just have it as a weakness, have it there as something that's on my shoulder, and use it as an excuse to not push myself, I wasn't going to allow that to happen. And I didn't want to be that kid who always said, oh yeah, I could have done this, but because of this, it's not worth it. It's just an excuse. You allow yourself to do it. Now, there are people with actual asthma issues, actual lung condition issues, that they can't do anything because their lungs literally won't allow them to do it. Now, those are the people we're donating to with this cause. This cause is personal for me, because I want to kill asthma with my bare hands, you know.
Damn you all to hell! I refuse to die like this! I'll drive them all out! Kill them with my bare hands! Do you hear me? With my bare hands!
And and I want to do it by raising enough money. And in my case, my goal is £2,000. I want to get that £2,000. I know it's not, to me it's a lot of money. I think to the cause it's really going to help. I am going to put the link in the description, so those who are still listening, please take a look at my story that I've written down there, and also just whatever, even if you can't support financially, just whatever you can, a message of support, a comment, whatever you like. It really, it all matters. It really does, because in my opinion, if we can all just realize that the limitations we place on ourselves are a lot of the time mental, and that if you allow that, it can really limit you in your pursuit of stuff that's really meaningful to you. And the other cause that I was going to talk about as well, so there's Asthma and Lung UK, who are the first people. I went to them, applied for them. I also applied for Cancer Research UK. Now, Cancer Research UK also have a place in my heart because of the women in my family who struggled with cancer. I never met my grandma growing up because she died a year or two after I was born, and never really got to know, she'd passed away because of cancer, because of breast cancer. And my great grandma also had that as well. And my mum's had a scare with it, and we've seen friends of the family also have scares with it. So it is, to me and to my family, very personal, something that I would also happily represent. If I could represent two charities at once, I would. I'll tell you that now. We'd be going back to back sort of thing. But sadly, you can't. You only represent one of the London Marathon. I will be representing Asthma and Lung UK. And I believe it's a great cause. I believe both causes are great. I'm sure that Cancer Research is going to get plenty of applicants and plenty of people to support them down the line. And I think that they've got me verbally, putting them on, but also I will be representing Asthma and Lung UK. So for me personally, and for you, the listener, go out there, go look at your local charity. And the reason why I'm doing this now is because I work for a company that will be able to help with. I'll be able to publicise this and be able to get more people to donate. I've got a great family who support me in this matter, and I've also proven myself. I've proven myself that I can do this run before, and no one needs to worry about me not being able to finish it, number one. That's always the number one scare, is that you represent a charity and then you don't finish the marathon. That's always it. Number one. And number two is doing it in a good time as well. I know this is very selfish, but for me personally, I am always very competitive in terms of marathon running in general. For me, it's me versus me. It's no one else. I just have a time in my mind that I have to accomplish. Now, when I went and did the Brighton Marathon, I just wanted to get below 3 hours and 30 minutes. That was it. Accomplished that one. For this marathon, for London Marathon, I'm really aiming. It's not until April 2024, but I'm hoping for below 3 hours and 25. Get below that, full five and a bit minutes faster. I don't know if that's going to be possible. My plan, for those who are back at the podcast, who've skipped forward out of the the charity section.
Mama said that. My mama said that. Mama said that. My mama said that.
She's gonna say yes.
Said that.
What I'm doing now is I'm slowly increasing to 50 miles a week. So I'm going, at the moment, my baseline's 25. I'm going to be adding 25 extra miles per week by the time we reach marathon. Obviously, I'm going to rein it in and have a week of what you would call, like, quote unquote rest a little bit, but it just means doing less miles. Like, still, for my body personally, if I take days off, my mental health kind of goes a little bit. So for me personally, I have to do it. It's something at the back of my head. I struggle really, and I don't know if many people can kind of relate to this, but for me, I have to do it. It has to be done. It has to be ticked off like a list, because it just makes me feel human again. It's like what Goggins says, evil can't stand a 10-mile run. And if you've ever run 10 miles, anything that's bothering you, anything at all, like genuinely, I've been for one earlier. I went for 12.5 miles and I went at a chilled pace of, I think it was like 8 minutes and 11 seconds per mile. So really chilled pace, and you just feel like nothing. So, water over duck's back, just kind of, the endorphins, I feel amazing. It's so good. Don't know why I did the accent, but it's in life, everything can feel very up here. I've talked about this so many times. Like, I love talking about it. It's like this idea that you can do the 9 to 5, you can do the your day-to-day job, and you can feel very just kind of. I think who is it? I think it's in Wolf of Wall Street, where he says, "Yeah, we're working with numbers." It's very.
Think about it. You're dealing with numbers all day long. Decimal points, high frequencies, bang, 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 fucking digits, all very acidic, above the shoulders mustard shit.
Matthew McConaughey, and I love that scene, because he is right. If you're working for it, like either in like a computer science industry, or what you're working with IT, or you're working with anything that's very screen based, you do get like that. There's a little bit of tension that builds up within you. And so when you do these long runs, they just take it out of you. They just take that sort of negativity, any sort of resentment you may have towards people. You're just like, yeah, it's fine. Life is good. We're all good. Everybody's fine.
This is fine. I'm okay with the events that are unfolding currently.
And it could be that maybe that's not going to work for you. Maybe you're always going to be kind of just like up here with the tension. But I do recommend it, because a nice long slow run just kind of makes you think, makes you realize as well what's important to you, what position you are in life. In meditation as well, it is a form of meditation. I think it was Jesse Itzler who said he doesn't meditate, but if he goes on a run, that is his meditation, because it's his only time alone. He talked about that with in the book Living with the Monks, and it was this idea that up until his time before the monastery, he'd never spent any real time alone, because he had kids, wife, business, all of these things, just constant chatter, being on his phone. And then when he came out of the monastery, because he'd spent so much time there, so much time in the zone of yourself, you realize that everything around you becomes external, and the things you can't control no longer affect you as much as the things that you can control. So what can you control in your life that's going to make you happier? And for me personally, getting that long run out on a Sunday is just going to... and exhale. There's nothing there. There's no angst. It's all gone. And when I'm recording these videos, sometimes I do them Saturday nights, and I've done a really long gym session in the morning or the afternoon. And so I'm coming in here happy-go-lucky, because I don't feel... And I've talked about this with a close friend of mine. We were having a chat the other day via... I think it was... Was it I've forgotten the name. I think I've got it here. The app Discord. That was it, Discord. And she was saying to me, just like, putting your negativity or your emotion onto other people is weighing them down a little bit, and that can be that can affect them. So if you're just expressing all of your emotion onto somebody else, it can just feel like you're placing your weight of your shoulders, that tension I talked about earlier, onto somebody else. And you're just doing it to make yourself feel better, but you don't realize that you're putting it onto another person, and you're saying, here you go, here's my weight, so that I can feel better. And then you don't realize, oh no, I've just done that to someone else. And it's nothing like, for me personally, I mean, I've heard that a lot of people say that's kind of negative because you're holding it in, but for me personally, I don't hold emotion in like that. For me, I express emotion through my workouts, and I can journal and put it out externally. I don't want to make it about me all the time. That's the main thing. I am a very selfish person, let's be honest. Like, we're doing a one-to-one podcast right now. I accept that thoroughly. But if I'm gonna die one day, I'm gonna do my thing, and that's how it is. Like, life is very fleeting, and yes, make some sacrifices here and then for other people, but sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do, man. That's it. There's no I've got a tick list in my mind. I was making it earlier. I was like, holy crap, I've done this, and this year, and next year I'm going to be doing the marathon. What else can I do to keep going, to keep these goals, to keep that level of happiness high? Because we can all feel that day to day can feel a little bit like a mundane thing, but if you have those things that you really care about, that you're passionate about, then everything can feel meaningful. Like, everything that you're moving towards, it can feel passionate towards, because you have those goals. And I don't mean you're going to be forgetting about the day-to-day things, like I said in multiple podcasts before, where you're enjoying the little things in life, but you've also got to have the big goals. One of mine, I really want to climb Kilimanjaro. My driving instructor talked to me recently. When he was like 18 or 19, he went abroad and he spent like 6 months there in Africa. And then he went and did Kilimanjaro when he was ill. And it's like, dude, that's so cool, man. It's so awesome to hear people do that. Like, that's what I'm inspired by. When people do that, I'm just sat there in awe, like, of people. And then he told me he went and did the Three Sisters in 24-hour period. I was like, bro, like, that's so cool. Those are the things that I'm looking for. Those are the achievements that I look at in life. And I'm starting to realize, like, yes, that's absolutely nuts. That's fine with me. But, like, not everyone's going to love that, and that's okay. Goggins says it best. He says, when people stop understanding you, that's when you know you've done it right. That's when you know that you're heading in the right direction. Because if you want to be like everyone else, then they're always going to understand you. But if not everyone understands you, then you're moving in the right direction. So, yes, back to the London Marathon. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant there.
I wish you could just shut your big yapper!
The London Marathon training. How do I get there? Well, like I said, baseline at the moment, 25 miles. 25 miles a week, which, as I've talked about before in previous podcasts, like I've talked about in my Brighton Marathon podcast, you put a 5-miler on a Friday, you put an 8-miler on a Wednesday, and you put around a 10 to 13-miler on a Sunday. Today it was 12.5. I think I did... What did I do on... I think I did 7.5 on Friday in the end, and 7 on Wednesday to try and make it up in between, because I've been a bit busy over the weekend, and that was that's a little bit more intense. I'm trying to up those miles, so I'm adding a run on Tuesdays, which I don't normally do. Normally it's just a weight training day. So it's going to be more difficult. It's going to be more calories being taken in so that I can get the massive, get the pump.
The greatest feeling you can get in a gym, or the most satisfying feeling you can get in the gym, is the pump. Let's say you train your biceps. Blood is rushing into your muscles, and that's what we call the pump. Your muscles get a really tight feeling, like your skin is going to explode any minute. It's really tight. It's like somebody blowing air into your muscle. It just blows up, and it feels different. It feels fantastic.
And this is another thing. To be a hybrid athlete, and you can try and be a hybrid athlete, you need to make sure you're also eating properly. Eating good fruit, making sure that you're stretching a lot. One of the things that I'm struggling with at my moment is my lower back, because I thought the other day, you know what, I haven't squatted in a while, let's see how I can do that. And you're like, oh no, this is a terrible idea. And I also thought, yes, I've seen knees over toes do this, why didn't I try doing that? And then that's double trouble for my back. So I'm going to stick to my stretching routine and not use any weighted things yet, and build my way up until I can stretch all the way to my toes without having to bend my legs when touching them. So that's the main thing. Hopefully, if I can increase my flexibility by the time I'm doing the London Marathon, my stride will be a little bit longer, and that will mean it will give me the flexibility to be able to get faster because of it. And then also I'm going to be incorporating heart rate training. I've never done this before. So I know it's crazy, isn't it? I've been running for 8 years and I haven't done any heart rate training. All I've ever done, right, up until this point in those 3 runs a week is basically go for a fast speed run on Friday, and then Wednesday can be a mix of it can be any sort of, it can be a slow pace or a fast pace, depending on how I'm feeling at the time, energy wise, and then Sunday's always just race pace. Now, that's probably not good because those aren't real variations over time. It has helped me up to this point. It has meant that I was running at a 7:54 pace for Brighton and a 7:45 for Manchester. But I think I can go faster. I think I can get to 7:30. And I think that the only way I'm going to be able to do that is by setting runs like on Tuesday at seriously slow paces. So having that heart rate at 140 and running at probably like an 8-minute 30 pace. Now, for me personally, that hurts a little bit because obviously my overall pace for the year is going to go over. It's going to go up from last year. So 750 last year, it's probably going to go all the way up until 755 for this year. Maybe even 8 minutes, which kind of like hurts me inside, but it's going to be more miles. And it's also going to help with the race pace overall. And I need to get over my ego a little bit and just be like, right, okay, I'm going to sacrifice some of these days like Tuesday and Wednesday for the low heart rate training, race pace on Sunday, and Friday maybe mix it up a little bit, maybe switch it out. But I've also got a race plan starting in December using my Runkeeper app, where it's going to have 4 runs a week, maybe even 5 runs, to truly like nail it in and focus in on that heart rate training and being able to make sure that I'm putting in the positive miles and making sure that I'm just training right and fueling my body right. And if by, let's say, February of next year, when it's really cold here in the UK and I'm still stiff and I'm struggling with injuries or anything along those lines, I will be a little bit worried, but I'm going to have to readjust and maybe just go back down to the 3. I can always go back to the baseline. That's what's awesome about building up to this point from the 8 years that I've done, the running, and also knowing what to do in the gym to make sure that I'm not going to injure myself. So no squatting, no deadlifting, and minimizing any sort of lower back tension that could be created from certain weightlifting movements. So yes, all of that in the training plan. Talking about food as well, carbohydrates, something that I've made sure over the years that I've truly realized carbs are super important for when it comes down to running, but also eating the clean carbohydrates and mixing it up a little bit. Not everything has to be dirty, not everything has to be clean. I've always talked about having a balanced diet, having on Fridays having sweets and stuff like that, and enjoying your diet. And I think it's become a bit of a fad phase for everybody to go to keto, to go to vegan, to go to all of these things. I think very much so personalize it for you and find what works, because everyone's different and everyone wants to try new things, and there's no judgment on my side. I've tried everything under the sun, trust me. And for you and for me, I think if you're this far into the podcast, you understand that it's just a trial and fail sort of find out what works and what doesn't.
Failure is something that you should be afraid of. It should be afraid of, but that's why you should go out there and challenge yourself to fail. Because if you're not failing at something, that means you've set your goals to pass.
And this is for like proteins, fats, carbs, like everything in there, getting the right minerals, getting the right balance, and also understanding as well what works in terms of your tummy issues that can happen before race, if you need to go to the loo, all of these things, understanding what foods are going to affect you in terms of digestion. And that's really important as well. I know exactly the foods to eat before the race that aren't going to affect me. I know what to drink beforehand. And I've talked about that in my Brighton Marathon podcast, but I'll reiterate as well, make sure it's fruit, make sure if you are going to be eating before a race, it's going to be some easily digestible, high carbohydrate / sugary foods to be able to get it into the bloodstream, and make sure that it's not too much in fiber, otherwise you will be needing to use the loo. Now, one thing I do want to talk about as well is using just the right mindset going in as well. So breathing, one thing I did before the race in Brighton was Wim Hof to make sure that I was expanding those lungs. So Wim Hof technique as well, utilize that. Food, training, stretching, Wim Hof. Boom! You're in there. You've got it. You've got your plan. And I think it's just a consistency at the end of the day and enjoying it. Like Christ, like if you're hating it, that's not going to be good. Like I love what I do. I love it and I'm passionate about it and I'm obsessed. And that's the right way to be when you're doing something. If you're enjoying something in life and you're obsessed about it, then that's the way forward. And not everyone's going to understand that, but at the end of the day, you're going to be happy, and that's what matters. So, leaving it there on that really positive note, I will be running the London 2024 Marathon. I hope to see you, the listener, the viewer there. This has been the Taylor's Tales podcast. This has been Chris's Corner. I've been your host, Chris Taylor, and as always, I hope to see you this time next week. Bye now.
Why the fuck are you out here? I said because you're not.